Every night at 3:33 a.m. the same unknown number calls, but there's no record of it. For exactly 47 nights now, my phone has rung at precisely 3:33 a.m., displaying a number I don't recognize with an area code that doesn't exist. My call logs show nothing when I check in the morning. My phone company has no record of these calls, and last night, when my girlfriend stayed over to witness it herself, she heard nothing while I watched my screen light up and felt the vibration in my hand. I'm starting to question my own sanity, but there's something about these calls that feels connected to a mistake I made 5 years ago that I've never told anyone about. I know how this sounds. Trust me, I've gone through every rational explanation. Phone glitch. Recurring dream. Stress-induced hallucination. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Yes, I bought a detector, it's fine. But none of them explain what's been happening, and none of them explain the voice I finally heard when I answered last week. For context, I'm a 34-year-old software developer. I've always been the logical, grounded type. The friend who debunks conspiracy theories at parties. The guy who needs to see evidence before believing anything. I've never been into the paranormal or supernatural. Until now, I would have laughed at someone telling a story like mine. It started in early March. I was in that weird half-conscious state between sleeping and waking when my phone rang. The sudden noise jolted me fully awake, and I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand. The screen showed 3:33 a.m. and a number, 826-513-9937. I didn't recognize it, so I declined the call and went back to sleep. The next night, same thing. Exactly 3:33 a.m. Same number. I declined again, irritated at the disruption to my sleep. By the third night, I was expecting it. I even set an alarm for 3:30 a.m. to be fully awake when it came. Sure enough, 3:33 a.m., same number. This time, I answered with an annoyed hello, but there was only silence on the other end. After about 15 seconds, the call disconnected. On the fourth morning, I checked my call history to block the number, but there was no record of any calls at 3:33 a.m. None. Not in my missed calls, not in my received calls. Nothing. I thought maybe I had dreamed the whole thing, but that night, it happened again. This pattern continued for over a month. Every night, 3:33 a.m. Same number. No record afterward. I began documenting it, taking screenshots of the incoming call, recording the screen with my laptop camera. When I reviewed the footage the next day, I could see myself clearly reacting to something, picking up my phone, but the phone screen in the video was dark. The screenshot showed nothing but my lock screen. I contacted my service provider. The representative checked my records and confirmed there were no incoming calls at 3:33 a.m. on any of the dates I mentioned. She suggested I restart my phone, check for software updates, and if the problem persisted, do a factory reset. I tried all three. The calls continued. Around the 6th week, things escalated. I answered the call as usual, expecting silence, but this time I heard something static, like an old radio between stations, and beneath it, what sounded like distant voices. I couldn't make out any words, just the cadence of conversation. Then the static cleared for just a moment, and a woman's voice, clear as day, said, "Do you remember what happened on Pine Road?" The call disconnected immediately. I sat there, fully awake now, my heart pounding. Pine Road. Of course I remembered Pine Road. It was where I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, one I spent 5 years trying to forget. 5 years ago, I was driving home late from a friend's bachelor party. I wasn't drunk, I'd stopped drinking hours before, but I was exhausted. It was raining heavily, and Pine Road is a winding back road with poor lighting. I must have closed my eyes for just a second, because the next thing I knew, I felt a thump and jerked awake to see something dark rolling into the ditch beside the road. I stopped immediately and got out to look. The rain was coming down in sheets by then, and I couldn't see clearly, but I was certain I'd hit something. An animal, I told myself. A deer or maybe someone's dog. I searched for nearly an hour in the rain but found nothing. No blood. No animal. Nothing. I convinced myself I'd hit a fallen branch or a garbage can blown into the road by the wind, but there was always that doubt. That tiny voice in the back of my mind that whispered, what if it wasn't an animal? I never reported the incident. Never told anyone. Just drove home, took a hot shower, and tried to forget about it. 2 days after the Pine Road call, I was scrolling through local news archives online, looking for any reports of hit and runs or found bodies from 5 years ago. There was nothing for the date I remembered, but there was a small article from exactly 1 week later. A woman's body had been discovered in the woods off Pine Road, about a quarter mile from where I thought the incident had occurred. The cause of death was listed as exposure. They believed she had been walking home drunk, fallen into the ditch, and died from hypothermia in the rainy night. The date of death was estimated to be around the time of my drive home. The woman's name was Claire Bennett. She was 26. The article included a photo, a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. I'd never seen her before in my life. At least, I didn't think I had. I spent the next few days in a spiral of guilt and fear. Had I hit her that night? Had she stumbled away injured, only to die in the woods? Or was this a coincidence, and my guilt was making connections that weren't there? I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? 5 years ago, I might have hit something on a rainy night, and now my phone is ringing with ghost calls? They'd think I was insane or attention-seeking. Last week, after nearly 40 days of calls, I broke down and told my girlfriend, Megan. I expected skepticism or concern about my mental health, but she was surprisingly understanding. She offered to stay over to witness the call herself that night. We both set alarms for 3:30 a.m. When they went off, we sat up in bed, fully awake, my phone between us. At precisely 3:33 a.m., my phone screen lit up with a familiar number. I felt the vibration in my hand, heard the ring. Megan looked confused. "What am I supposed to be seeing?" she asked. "The phone, it's ringing," I said, showing her the screen. She looked at me strangely. "Your phone isn't doing anything, babe." I answered the call while she watched. The static was back, louder this time, and beneath it, what sounded like a woman crying. Then the voice again, Pine Road. "You left me in the rain. 826-513-9937, remember the numbers." The call ended. Megan was staring at me with growing concern as I repeated what I'd heard. "Your phone never rang," she said gently. "You were just staring at a dark screen, talking to yourself." I showed her the number 826-513-9937, and something clicked. I grabbed a pen and wrote it down. 826-513-9937. I stared at it, then rearranged it by the hyphens. 826 to 513, 9937. August 26, 5/13, 99:37. August 26, May 13th, 9:37. August 26th was the date of the bachelor party. The night I drove home on Pine Road, May 13th, was Claire Bennett's birthday. According to the article I'd found, 9:37 was the time I'd left my friend's house that night. According to a text I'd sent when heading home, my hands were shaking as I showed Megan my realization. She didn't dismiss me outright but suggested I was finding patterns because I wanted them to be there. Maybe. Probably. But it felt too specific to be coincidence. The next day, while Megan was at work, I drove to Pine Road for the first time in 5 years. It looked the same, narrow, winding, poorly lit even in daylight. I found the approximate area where I thought the incident had happened and pulled over. The woods were thick here, the ditch deeper than I remembered. I made my way down the embankment, not sure what I was looking for. About 20 yards in, I found a small clearing where wildflowers grew in unusual abundance. In the center was a crude cross made of sticks, weathered by years of exposure. Someone had been here. Someone remembered. As I stood there, my phone rang in my pocket. It was 3:33 p.m. The number on the screen, 826-513-9937. With shaking hands, I answered. "Hello?" I whispered. No static this time. Just the woman's voice, clearer than ever. "I know it was an accident. But you left me there to die alone in the rain." "I'm sorry," I choked out, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't know. I convinced myself it was nothing. I should have looked harder, called for help." "The police," the voice said. "Tell them where to find the watch." "Under the big oak, 3 feet down." It was my grandmother's. "I want my mother to have it back." The call ended. This time, when I checked my recent calls, there it was. A 1-minute call from 826-513-9937. I went to the police that afternoon. I told them everything, the night on Pine Road, the calls, the watch. I expected them to dismiss me as a lunatic, but the detective I spoke with listened carefully. When I mentioned Claire Bennett, his expression changed. "Bennett case has been cold for years," he said. "Family never got closure. She was wearing a valuable antique watch when she disappeared, but it wasn't on the body when she was found. We always figured someone stole it after she died." They agreed to search the area I'd identified. Yesterday, I received a call from the detective. They found an antique gold watch buried exactly where the voice had said it would be. They're reopening the investigation into Claire's death. The calls have stopped now. 5 nights of silence. I don't know if Claire Bennett was the woman I hit that night on Pine Road. The police say her injuries were consistent with a fall, not a vehicular impact. But maybe she fell because I startled her, or because she jumped out of the way of my car. I'll never know for certain. What I do know is that I failed as a human being that night. I should have been more thorough, called for help, reported the incident. Maybe she would have been found in time. Maybe she would still be alive. Megan is worried about me. She suggested therapy, which I've agreed to. I need to process what's happened, whether it was supernatural or just my guilt manifesting in an extreme way. I've also decided to reach out to Claire's family, not to confess to anything I'm not certain of, but to offer any comfort I can. To let them know their daughter's case is getting attention again. I still have questions that may never be answered. How did Claire, or whatever was calling me, know the exact time I left the party that night? How did she know her own birthday? If the calls weren't real, how did I know where to find the watch? And if they were real, what does that mean about everything I thought I understood about life and death? I don't expect anyone reading this to believe me. I'm not sure I would believe it if someone else told me this story. But I needed to share it, to put it out into the world. Perhaps as a way of making amends, perhaps as a warning about the power of unresolved guilt. Check your call logs. Answer your phone at 3:33 a.m. if it rings. And if you ever think you've hit something on a dark road, stop. Search thoroughly. Call for help. Don't let 5 years pass with someone waiting for you to remember what happened. TLDR, started getting mysterious calls at 3:33 a.m. every night that don't show up in my call logs. The calls led me to discover information about a woman who died on a road where I may have been involved in an accident 5 years ago. Found evidence that convinced police to reopen her case. Edit. To those asking if this is a creative writing exercise, I wish it was. This has been my life for the past month and a half. I understand the skepticism. I'd feel the same in your position. Edit 2. A lot of you are asking for updates on the police investigation. I don't have much to share yet. They're treating the watch as new evidence and looking into how it ended up buried in those woods. The detective said he'd keep me informed, but these things take time. Edit 3. Several people have suggested ways to record the calls. I've tried everything, call recording apps, putting my phone on speaker and using another device to record, etc. Nothing works. It's like the calls exist in some space between reality and something else. Final update. For those who've been following this, Claire's mother reached out to me after the police spoke with her about the watch. We met yesterday. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but also healing in a way I didn't expect. She didn't blame me for what happened. She thanked me for bringing her daughter's watch back to her and for not giving up on finding the truth. I don't know if I deserve her gratitude, but I'm grateful for it all the same.